Hey all and welcome back to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. In today's episode we are going to take another look at the known pieces of Eden and what effect they have on our world. Now before we dive in, I'd like to mention two things. The first one is Merry Christmas. I know it's late and I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. And an early Happy New Year for you all as well, because my next podcast will be after New Year. And the second one is, I would like to apologise for the lack of content last week. I haven't been on social media as much. This is because the whole family's had fever, including me, and I didn't want to deliver half-attempted content on live, and I also didn't have the time with an ill child to try and write the script. So I apologise about that, but I'm back again, fit and fighting. And now we're going to dive into our first known piece of Eden. And this one reminds me of Indiana Jones with the fourth terrible film, and they're called the Crystal Skulls. Now the Crystal Skulls are communication type devices. There is three known communication types. The first one is mobile phone style with back and forward communication. The second one is a bit cooler. It's like the old-fashioned recording style ones where you could leave a message, voicemail style. And the last one I find very creepy is by using a blood vial, they're able to be transformed as a monitoring device that can project audio-visual surveillance. But this is all done connected through a living being's blood. To me, this is very voodoo-y, but I doubt Assassin's Creed dabbled in voodoo. Not yet, and I know they've done a New Orleans game, I believe, with Liberation, but I don't think they touched on voodoo. It's such a shame because that'd be a cool topic. The next one is one that we all know in history. We know that the Spanish Inquisition was rumoured to have looked for, and that is the Fountain of Youth. A fountain that we've all dreamed of, and it's exactly what it says on the tin. It was a piece of Eden that was said that if you drank the waters from it, would grant you eternal youth. I believe this was mentioned a few times in comics and was found by the Templar explorer Juan Ponce de Leon when he travelled to Florida to obtain the artifact. I know the assassins in Florida were determined to stop him, and they sent Miguel Roman de Lugo to convince him to abandon his quest and turn back. Now, when he did, Ponce de Leon did refuse, which led into a bit of a battle, and the assassin struck him with a poison arrow that resulted in death. So it seems if you're going to look for the eternal Fountain of Youth, you might end up kicking the bucket in the process. Now, the next piece of artifact is something called the Fragment of Eden. Now, I will point out, I've played all the games, but I've not touched the comics. So a lot of these pieces of Eden I have found through friends, research, and everything. So I don't even know these exist, and this episode is actually fascinating me as much. So the next one was found in Assassin's Creed Pirates, which was a mobile game, a very good one before it was shut down, and it's called the Fragment of Eden. Now, the Fragment of Eden was, well, I don't really know how to explain it, other than that it had the powers similar to that of an Apple of Eden, but was also used to empower one's ship, boosting its speed and fireability. So it was one that was essentially used by pirates to make the firepower and the ships better. Now, this one, if we had it in Black Flag, would have turned the tides of all the war, and I think it would have made Black Flag a bit more fun with the endgame content, especially when you're taking down those legendary ships in the corner of the bloody map. Pardon my French on that one, guys. I was stuck for days on the blooming legendary ships. I think after I completed the game, it took me a month to take down all four ships. Oh, sorry, I sniffed nose again. Right, the next one is the Grand Temple Key. Now, we all know what the Grand Temple Key is. For those who don't, this is a spoiler for Assassin's Creed 3, but it was the key that unlocked the temple that Desmond Miles and his father, William Miles, used to avert the second apocalypse of 2012. The key was originally wielded by the assassins, but Haytham Kenway assassinated one of the assassins in a theatre at the start of the game, obtaining the key, which then led him on a mission to North America to find the Grand Temple and seek the artifact inside. But I don't think he realised that once inside, the artifact wasn't something that could help shift the tide of war between assassins and Templars. Instead, it was an artifact to stop an impending doom. Luckily, all things didn't pan out for Haytham, and the key fell back into assassins' hands. And those who have followed it will know what happened next. If anyone who hasn't, I would advise play Assassin's Creed 3 because it's a great story and a great ending for the Desmond Miles storyline. I apologise again, my nose has started to sniffle now and I sound like... I don't know what I sound like, to be honest. I probably sound awful. Right. On to our next piece of Eden, and my favourite piece of Eden, because it sounds pleasant and less doomsday, and that is the heart. Now, the heart's main purpose was to unlock the full abilities and powers of the Sword of Eden, and it also repairs all damages done to the Sword of Eden. Now, this made it a very unique and also dangerous artifact because it didn't affect the user or the people around him as such. Instead, it played a key part in the Sword of Eden and the damages that could persist. Also, if you were stupid enough to damage the Sword of Eden, it helped replenish it. Meaning, with the heart and the sword, you had an infinite source of power with the Sword of Eden, which is very scary. Now, the next piece, apologise again if I get the saying wrong, it's a very unique one, especially since when I read out what it does, and people question why we've got this mythology trait, and honestly, you'll start to realise Assassin's Creed has always had this mythology in it, and it's been a bit buried. So the next one is the Core Inua. Sorry again for the pronunciation. The Core Inua bind other pieces' fates, harbour conscious of Durga, and it projects tangible holograms, expels a blast of energy, and it helps locating other pieces of Eden. Also has a shield protection. I will admit I got this one off Assassin's Creed Wiki, so I will give a shout out to them, as I've never heard of it before. Now, it binds other pieces' fates. Now, to me, that sounds like destiny with the fates. Could be reading it wrong, but that is a big red flash in the mythology side, because if it binds the other pieces' fates, then it must mean that with this, it acts as destiny, so the apple must always go with the staff, or the sword must always go with the heart. I don't know much about the consciousness of Durga, but I will do some digging on that one. Other than that, it seems most of these pieces of Eden all range from either doing damage or projecting holograms that could help people, which is kind of a strange one of why. I don't know, the more I look into this, the more I'm trying to work out why these pieces were invented. Was it just for war, or was there a bigger purpose in play? Now, the other one is the Precursor Box, which reminds me of Pandora's Box. Now, this one is a very useful artifact for the Assassins, or indeed the Templars to wield. And that is because it has the ability to siphon other artifacts as power sources. And using the power it generates from other pieces of Eden, it can decipher ESU reading and produce holograms. This means if the Sword of Eden is too powerful or an apple is too powerful, you could use this to cipher the artifacts as a power source, rendering them unusable. Meaning with the Precursor Box, in theory, you could essentially make a lot of the artifacts null and void, meaning you don't need them in the war. And also, It imprints memories into the minds of users, which is a similar trick to what the Animus does, but instead of imprinting memories, it takes memories that have been imprinted in DNA. But this means if the Templars had this, they could imprint false memories into a mind of an assassin, and when he goes in the Animus, he could then play out false memories, meaning the Templars could lead assassins on a wild goose chase and essentially steal something from out under their nose. This is one of the most dangerous artifacts I've read of. Now, the next one is the pyramid. I'm not talking about the big stone pyramids of Egypt that we all climbed up as Bayak, but I'm talking about the pyramid that we all see in Odyssey. Now, there's not much description needed for this piece of artifact, as we've all seen what it can do in the game. And now it essentially is an artifact that can help read memories and calculate the future. And again, this one is a very unique one because it's doing what the Animus does. It reads people's memories. And this makes me think, did we really make the Animus ourselves? Or is this an idea passed down from the Isu? Because if you put the Pyramid of Isu together with the precursor box, you essentially have something that could read people's minds, put false memories in, and you could change the fate of the future without them realizing it. You could make a president have false memories about an assassination attempt, or someone's after him, and he'll do anything in his power to stop that. But in fact, it's not real. Which is kind of an interesting spin on things. Now, that's all I've got time for today. There is about 10 more that I've found in my little script. So I'm going to save them for part 3 next week, and then we'll have 3 parts of this long journey through Pieces of Eden. I do feel like I may have rushed a few things, so I apologise as I've read them off and I've looked through them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through them all again. I'm going to pick out ones that I've perked my ears up a bit, that I've not had a lot of limelight, or had a bit of limelight, but no one's really calculated what their purpose is. And I'm going to look at see if some of these artifacts have a bigger purpose on the world.